Hi, my name is Todd McAlary. I'm the instructor for APS 150, a course in ethics for first-year engineering students at the University of Toronto. This is Module 1B on professionalism. The learning objectives for this module are understanding the difference between common law and tort law, discussing the learned professions, the engineer's duty of care, and the Professional Engineers of Ontario's Code of Ethics. Common law is a principle that was developed in the United Kingdom many years ago and has since spread to all of the former colonies and is therefore practiced in about 1/3 of the world. Common law, the basic principle is that if somebody commits an offense, then whatever decision of punishment is made by a court should be applicable to some subsequent person who commits the same offense. So a decision is made by the judge, and that establishes a precedent, and the precedent is then applied to subsequent cases. With tort law or statute law, the law is just written down, and it's not up to a judge to decide. Statutes include things like the Engineers Act, which governs our behavior as engineers. There's 4 key elements to tort law. The basic principles are they're trying to limit or constrain or control intention to cause harm, interference with somebody's reputation, interference with possessions and property, and failure to take reasonable care. The learned professions are professions like medicine, dentistry, architecture, law, and engineering, where a high degree of education is required to be able to practice in those professions. Society allows those professionals to govern themselves, and the Engineering Act is the act that bestows upon engineers the governance over their own profession. And why is self-governance needed? Well, if an engineer was called to a disciplinary hearing over some action, and the decision needed to be made by a judge or by a jury, those people might not know enough about engineering to be able to make the appropriate decision. Whereas, if they're brought to discipline of a panel of other engineers, then presumably those engineers would know enough about the technical matter to be able to pass a better judgment. So professional status is something that's bestowed upon a profession by society. And society could basically take it back again if it wasn't honorably discharged in terms of the responsibility of the engineering society to the public. So basically it's through the conduct, it's through the daily actions of the professional that the profession maintains the esteem that's needed to maintain its self-governance. So what is an engineer? I used to think that an engineer was somebody who worked on an engine or ran an engine, somebody behind the wheel of a train. But actually the word began with the French word ingénieur, which means an ingenious person. So engineers have always been people that had a special level of knowledge, were able to come up with solutions to problems, and that's what makes the profession fun and interesting. So the Professional Engineers Act deals specifically with the practice of engineering, which it defines as, the act of designing, composing, evaluating, revising, reporting, directing, or supervising. It's a pretty broad list of activities, but specifically where the safeguarding of public health, property, or welfare is concerned. So if you're a scientist and you're doing work where nobody could stand to get hurt, then that's science. If you're doing work where somebody's life is at risk, or their health is at risk, or their safety is at risk, then it becomes engineering. And engineering must be practiced with a license that's bestowed upon the individual by the Professional Engineers Ontario Society. So the society also binds the engineer to a code of conduct or a code of ethics. And this is published on the web. I sent a link to this in an earlier announcement, and you students should have read this and committed it to memory because this is prime exam material. But I'm going to go through it now just so that some of the things that are sort of behind the lines, or between the lines or behind the scenes, might be better understood. So the practitioner has a duty to the public, their employer, their clients, other members of the profession, and themselves to act in all times with fairness, fidelity, devotion, knowledge, competence. All of these things are the keys to the behavior of an engineer, and you need to be able to do all these things. You can't make stuff up. You can't have inadequate knowledge, practice in an area that you're not qualified for. You can't lie, cheat, and steal, or bribe people, and otherwise behave in a way that's not fair and loyal. You have to consider the public needs and not just your own. If you're going to make a whole lot of money, but people are going to end up getting sick as a result of your actions, that's subject to discipline. You can have your license revoked. The Code of Ethics goes on to say that the practitioner has to regard their duty to the public safety as paramount. They have to all times enhance public regard for their profession, not to express publicly or while they're serving as a witness any opinion that is not founded on adequate knowledge and honest conviction. Now, adequate knowledge means that you can't make an opinion on something that you're not qualified to make an opinion on. If you haven't studied it, if you're not familiar with it, you need to just say, I don't know. And honest conviction means that you can't sort of bend the truth, you can't lie about it, you have to be absolutely certain that you're right about something before you tell somebody that's your opinion. And you are also expected to keep your license prominently displayed as a matter of pride in your profession. Practitioner needs to act in matters as a faithful agent for their client and their employer. So any information that you obtain during the course of conducting your business, you need to maintain as confidential. You can't be talking to people about it at a party. You can't be, sharing that information with competing businesses or, other interests. You have to keep that confidential. If you're in a situation where you're asked to do something where in any way, shape, or form you might have a competing interest, then you need to disclose that. If you have a client that wants you to take on a particular assignment, but you've already worked for another company that is somehow related to the same project, then your past employment by another client could affect your judgment for the future client. And it's only fair if they know about that. You must let them know. If you disclose this potential conflict of interest and your client waives it and says, no, that's okay, I understand, it's fine, and they give that to you in writing, then you can still proceed and do that work, but you can't do it without telling them. You have to tell them. If you're an employee of an engineering firm and you also practice as a sole practitioner, meaning you work directly for clients in addition to working for a company, then anytime you take on an assignment working for somebody individually, you need to tell the employer that you work for and the company that you work for that you're taking on that assignment. You can't keep that from them. And if that's something that they're uncomfortable with, they can actually ask you and tell you not to take it on. If you're asked to work cooperatively with other engineers, even if they work for a different company, even if that company is a competing firm, and even if they compete in such a way that you're worried about them taking your business or beating you for projects, if you're asked to work together with them and you're being paid to do that service, then you must work with them cooperatively. And you cannot in any way, shape, or form try to make them look bad or try to not give them information in a timely fashion so that their work doesn't look as good. You have to be cooperative and you have to, be professional. There's a bunch of other things a practitioner should do. You should be courteous. You should not review the work of another engineer without letting them know, unless they've been terminated and they're no longer employed. You shouldn't take any opportunity to maliciously injure the business of another practitioner. Engineers should work play well in the sandbox. You shouldn't attempt to gain an advantage over somebody else by paying or accepting bribes or commissions. You should give proper credit for the engineering work, including accepting fair wages for the work that you perform. And a practitioner should maintain and honor the integrity of their profession. And in order to do that, one of the things that we all need to do is, without fear, we need to expose before the proper tribunals, which means bring to the attention of the Professional Engineering Society, any unprofessional, dishonest, or unethical conduct by another practitioner. So there's tens of thousands of engineers in Ontario. If one engineer sees another engineer doing something that's dishonest, they must tell Professional Engineers Ontario. If it's something that's unethical, they must tell. If it's unprofessional, you could have a word with that engineer and just say, hey, listen, your behavior is unprofessional. That's not becoming of an engineer. That's a requirement of our code of ethics. Please stop. And if they do, then, you've resolved it like civilized people. But if it's not resolved, then you can't just say, oh, well, I hope it goes away, or I wish it would go away, or it's not up to me to deal with it. Every engineer has a duty to their profession to bring those events to the attention of the proper tribunals, the Professional Engineers Ontario. This is the end now of Part 1B.